This is David Ward, historian at the National Portrait Gallery and co-curator of this wonderful exhibition, Hide Seek, having to do with gay portraiture, gay artists. David, you must be getting really tired of talking about Wojnarovicz. Why don't we take you back to more peaceful and innocent times? Tell us how this show all got started and how Walt Whitman, who's posing right behind you, had something to do with the genesis of this show.
Well, I should say, Lee, at the beginning that every item in this exhibition actually at one point was controversial. It's only over time that the controversy faded away, and I would hope at some point that might even happen with David Wojnarovicz and the video. But Whitman does have a particular place in the genesis of this exhibition, as well as in American culture generally. First of all, Walt Whitman was a nurse in the National Portrait Gallery's building, the old patent office building, and he was also a clerk in the Interior Department here after the war, from which job he was fired when it was discovered that he'd written that immoral book, Immoral because it sang the body electric, Leaves of Grass. But the specifics were that in 2006, when we reopened, I did our exhibition on Walt Whitman, an exhibition called Walt Whitman at Cosmos. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't particularly interested I wasn't interested at all, in fact, in Walt Whitman's sexuality or indeed in his private life. I was interested in biography and modernism and how Walt Whitman was portrayed by photographers like Matthew Brady.
Yes.
But I did have a portrait by Brady of Walt Whitman and his lover of 8 years, Peter Doyle, a Confederate deserter who Walt had met in Washington. Mm-hmm. And I said in the label, this is Walt Whitman and his lover of 8 years, Peter Doyle. And at the symposium I did for the exhibition, this man came up to me, introduced himself as Jonathan Katz, and said, "Did you have a lot of difficulty getting that label up on the wall?"
Just saying that he had a male lover was the...
And I said no. And, in fact, I wasn't sure anybody had ever read the label. And I said, why? And Jonathan said, because that's the first time that relationship has ever been acknowledged in a major museum exhibition.
Really?
That the scholarship in the museum had not kept up with what was popular knowledge or scholarly knowledge. And from that moment, from that conversation, Jonathan and I evolved a lengthy discussion about how we could deal with that element of silence, how we could deal with the way in which ambiguity and sexual difference was manifested not so much in social life or personal life, but through art, the way in which artists, gay, straight, lesbian artists whose sexuality we don't even have a clue about, how these themes became a central strand in American modernism. A task, of course, which Whitman himself defined in the mid-19th century when he said that I sing the body electric, but also I contain multitudes.
Yes.
The element of containing multitudes is what Hide Seek is all about.
Right. I think you wrote in the label something about omnisexual in terms of Whitman.
Well, he claimed to be. I think he was gay, but I'm not. He was very coy about his sexuality precisely because he wanted to be universal. The element here that for Whitman, nothing the body did was immoral, nothing that the brain did was immoral, that there were no limits. Mm-hmm. And so Whitman would place no limits on himself, and he placed no limits as well on American democracy.
Did you have any trouble getting this idea approved by the then director, who was not the current director, it was Mark Pachter?
Mark Pachter was the director. No, the really striking thing about this exhibition was that we received nothing but affirmative responses from both the National Portrait Gallery, the curatorial committee that looked into this, Mark Pachter, who greenlighted it, the previous director who greenlighted it right away, Martin Sullivan, who took over from Mark a few years ago, picked right up, and the Smithsonian Castle, despite the political controversy that's erupted, was also very supportive.
Sure.
Was also universally supportive, and the element in which the exhibition has been supported despite the Wojnarovicz controversy is I'm happy about that.
So were you blindsided when there came in this firestorm of controversy? Were you not expecting any of this?
I wasn't expecting it, and I was not expecting it to take the religious dimension.
Really?
Because of the, and I guess I was foolish. The element here where it seemed obvious to me that the Wojnarovicz video is by a Catholic who is using the image of the suffering Christ on the cross to exemplify the suffering of people with AIDS, HIV. And I just didn't see it. I understand the suspicion with which modern art is held by large sections of the American public. I understand that the modern artists are seen as secular, even blasphemous, but I saw the Wojnarovicz video as part of a tradition of Spanish or Mexican Catholicism. It was the use of the Christ as it's been used since time immemorial, really, and it was a video usage of that. I was surprised.
Going forward, is the Smithsonian in general and the National Portrait Gallery in particular, and people like you, are you going to have to be more careful? Are these things going to have to be vetted? What does this mean for the future?
I'm not sure. I don't think it's a matter of... This show was extensively vetted. The Smithsonian has a procedure about the so-called controversial or sensitive shows.
Procedure 603, I've been told.
Yeah, I'm buried in paperwork, so I don't get a word for it. I think that there's an element here where the Smithsonian needs to do shows that are cutting edge, but also shows which are defensible on cultural and intellectual grounds, or even political grounds. And I hope that there would be an element of perhaps slowing down let me just say this gently because it's beyond my pay grade, of slowing down the process a little bit, of not reacting to criticism quite so quickly.
I just spoke to Wayne Clough, and I think he agrees with you on that. So it's interesting that the evolution of thought has in some ways taken place. Well, I thank you very much for the time, and particularly for this wonderful show, which I found extremely revealing and rewarding. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you, Liz.